Hey everybody, this is Eric from EP Autos, your Libertarian car guy, and I'm driving down the road here in the 2016 Lexus Nx200rant, which was introduced last year. This is the second year out. It's more or less a carryover. They've made a few minor updates, including the N-Form suite of smartphone integration stuff. So what's the deal on this thing? Well, basically it is, in my opinion, kind of a downscaled 2/3 size version of the popular RX, which was the first really successful luxury crossover SUV. And it represents the new trend in having these really small, heavily turbocharged engines. This thing comes with a 2.0 liter 4 that's not only turbocharged and intercooled, but runs 10:0 compression, so it's high compression and turbocharged. They also use direct injection and port fuel injection. I think nobody else does that. And all that hullabaloo is done to eke out a couple of more miles per gallon. This thing gets, just doing this off the top of my head, I think it's 22 city, 28 highway with front-wheel drive, and 1 mile per gallon less with the all-wheel drive that's optional. And that's decent mileage, but it's not spectacularly better than, for example, the Acura RDX, which is a rival of this car's, that comes with a V6. Now, what's interesting about it is that the RDX is an older model, so they used V6s then to get you the power and the performance. But in order to maintain that power performance now with a new vehicle and the current federal fuel economy requirements, they've had to go with these smaller engines that are heavily turbocharged and have various other technological gewgaws to give them slightly more mileage. And it doesn't really matter so much to you as the buyer, I mean, unless you really care about 1 or 2 miles per gallon difference, but does matter a lot in terms of the car company's overall fleet average fuel economy, which is how they quantify that for purposes of gas guzzler taxes and so on. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of these 2.0 liter engines, smaller even in a vehicle like this that weighs nearly 4,000 pounds. And by the way, that's a whole nother rant. This is a compact SUV, and really 4,000 pounds is pretty hoggy for a vehicle this size. It weighs several hundred pounds more than my 70s muscle car, which is a 2-door coupe and has a gigantic V8, cast iron V8. Nonetheless, this thing still weighs a few hundred pounds more. The only reason that it does weigh that much is because of the other federal requirement, the crashworthiness and bumper impact requirements that all car companies have to comply with. And the only practical way to do that is to add structure, and the only way to really do that economically is to add more steel, and so that's what they've done. So these vehicles are all really heavy, and as a result of that, they use a lot of fuel. But Uncle doesn't want you to use fuel, so then they have to go with these small turbo engines. Anyway, back to the NX. Its chief deficit, probably relative to its rivals, is that it has less cargo capacity than they do. And other reviewers have commented on that, but it has to be qualified somewhat. It does have less behind the second row. It's got just under 18 cubic feet, which is less than the RDX. It's less than the Audi Q5. And it's less than the new Mercedes GLC, which replaces the GLK 350 in Mercedes lineup. However, if you fold the second row flat, the total cargo capacity opens up to about 53 or 54 cubes, and that's very close to what you'd get in the Audi and also the Mercedes. Of course, the downside is you do have to fold down the seats, and that's potentially a liability if you want to carry cargo and people. But overall, it's got good room in the first and the second row, decent gas mileage, and reasonably sporty for what it is. You know, this thing is not a rocket ship. It does 0 to 60 in 7 seconds. Slightly less quick than the Mercedes, slightly less quick than the Audi Q5. But it's quick enough probably for most Lexus buyers, and it's probably a really a good choice or an appealing choice for the current Lexus owner of an RX who really likes that vehicle, likes the way it looks, likes the way it behaves, handles, and drives, but really doesn't need something quite that big. This is something ideally suited for that person. You'll get a very similar vehicle that's It's just a more manageable size. Not that the RX is huge, but it is a bigger vehicle. This thing is about a foot shorter overall, so it's easier to park, and it fits in smaller spots. It takes up less room in the garage. And here's the big perk. Depending on which trim you go with, it's anywhere from about, I think, $5,000 to $10,000 less expensive than the RX, so you can save a bunch of money on the thing too. Anyway, the full review is up at epautos.com, and I hope you'll stop by and check it out. And thanks for listening. We'll catch up with you on